Hello, everybody, and welcome to GoIndieNow's live panel discussion show. I am your host, Joe Compton. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, we're so glad to have you here, and I'm so glad to have this awesome panel, a few of whom I just met this evening, so I'm real excited to talk to some new people. It's really awesome. I am the owner and operator of this great network, which is GoIndieNow, and if you're here, you probably know all about us, so I won't waste everybody's time with that. But I am also an author. I wrote a crime thriller called Amongst the Killing, which you can get in pretty much every format. And let's talk to our panel, see who's with us today. I'm just going to go from my left all the way to the right, and that would be starting with Anna.
Hi there. My name is Anna, or I go by G. Kirkham. I actually write romance novels. They are sort of steamy, not quite 50 Shades, but definitely not your mother's Harlequin. I have 7 books in the series. The second one is coming out in February. It is an MC romance, and that's part of the first series. The second series that I'm writing is kind of in the works, and it's about mafia wives.
Oh, neat. Awesome. That should be a lot of fun. Okay, Miranda?
Hi, good evening. My name is Miranda O. I'm the author of Chin Up, Tits Out series. I have 2 books in the series. Everybody thinks it's like, oh my gosh, what is this all about? It's purely just confidence and having this chin up, tits out attitude through life, right? I mean, life gets us down all the time anyway, so we might as well go and have some fun with it and twist it a little bit. And one book turned into 2 books, and eventually the 3rd book is going to be out. So if you like a wild ride, and it's sick, twisted sense of humor and real life issues, then I highly suggest it. It's a lot of fun, and I have a lot of fun meeting people with this book. So it's a little bit about me.
You just made one of our regulars very happy. Rebecca Jonesy is probably jumping out of her seat right now, waiting to talk to you. I'm waiting to hear from you.
Oh, so. Well, Rebecca, I'm an open door. Girl, I got you.
All right, Jennifer?
Oh, hey, I am Jen Landels. I'm the editor of Pulp Literature, which is, I don't know if you can see that. The lighting's terrible in here. It's a quarterly fiction magazine that is actually 4 years old next month. And we're having our 17th issue come out next month. And it's short fiction. But I am also the author of Elenia's Song Overture, which is my debut fantasy novel.
Very nice. Awesome.
So,
congratulations on the anniversary.
Thanks.
All right. So I promised this gentleman that I'd love to do this one thing with his name, and I'm just going to do it the one time and get it out of the way, and then we can, oops, hang on just a second. That was highly unprofessional. Sorry about that, everybody. I had my phone on. That was not the way I wanted that to go. But anyway, so I'm going to do this one time, and then it'll be over, and I won't have to do it again. So everybody, I want to introduce you to Con!
Thank you very much for the intro. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Con Lavery. I write dark fantasy novels, horror novels, and going to be branching off into thrillers next year. So the first bit I have is a dark fantasy series. Currently there are 2 books in the series. There will be 4, hopefully in 2018 and 19. And currently have a horror novel called Seed Me.
Very awesome. Thank you for indulging me, by the way, in my silliness, but I appreciate it. All right, Marnie, tell everybody who you are.
Hey, I'm Marnie Kate. I am the author of the Protectors of the Elemental Magic series. Well, I don't even need to hold it up. I got 3 of them behind me. 4 books are out, and 1 and 2 novellas are in the works. I'm also the host of GoIndieNow's Indie Insight, which is a interview panel recorded because live never goes right for me. Definitely dedicated to selling the indie artist brand. So thank you for having me, Joe.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. She's my anchor, so I needed an anchor tonight to help me out because I'm on fumes if the audience doesn't know that. But and obviously, clearly, live does not work very well for me either, as my phone rang, and I really apologize for that. But welcome. Thank you all for joining me. And you all have a unique perspective on what we're going to be talking about tonight, and that is that we're all part of this wonderful thing called an indie, publishing community. And I want to know from each of you what the community has done for you and how much you value its worth.
Well, I can speak. I'm newer to the community and to the industry or to the world of being an author, but I can tell you that my first book was completely different than my second book. But the first book, as soon as I told somebody that another fellow author in the indie world what I did and why I did it, it was welcoming me with open arms. Like, it was just another complete family that I've joined, and I really, really love having that aspect that we all got our stories and we're all really good at telling them in our own ways, and we all have the same goal, is to share our stories out there no matter what they are. So it's kind of been a really wild ride for me for the last couple of years, and I can't wait to see what happens when we all grow in our own ways but kind of simultaneously together now that we're all kind of grouped in.
Yeah, and to add to that too is being an indie author, I found it's nice to people really kind of share the secrets, and not even secrets, just the tricks of the trade when it comes to being an indie author. Like, how do you go about getting your books formatted? How do you go about printing them? Where do you go for online distribution? And yeah, people are very willing to share because a lot of people go into it not knowing what to do, and they figure it out on their way. And I was very much in the same boat. My first book 5 years ago was not the best experience because at first I didn't have anyone to talk to, but as I went on in the industry, I got to learn and discuss with different authors on what they do. And yeah, it's just been a very supportive community.
I think a lot of it is about perspective and individuality, and the fact that you have a safe place to go to where people can hear what you have to say and give you different dimensions of your thoughts that you can add. And I think that's really, really important as an author, because a lot of times we get stuck in our head, and although we want to tell our story, there's some valid points that we can actually look at to incorporate and make our books better, or make them a little more interesting, or add a little more flavor. And I really love the ability to be able to talk to people and actually get perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like, just community is so important. Pulp literature was born because of the writing circle we had, just three of us sitting on the deck drinking beer one afternoon going, we know so many authors, we know so many people that have stories out there. We have, between us, we have enough to put together a magazine. We have enough skills to put it together well, and technology is so good these days that you can do that sort of thing. But pulp literature has kind of been about community from the beginning, and it's a community that's growing. Every issue we have a launch party, and it really is just a big, party with so many people that have become our friends over the last 4 years.
Very cool. How about you, Marnie? What's your perspective on that?
Well, I'm a cheerleader for the indie community. That's what my whole Indie Insight developed from. It started with the panels, and then from the panels, I just met all these amazing people. But sometimes I'd look at the panels, and there'd be a few of us little wallflowers that would be like very polite and not wanting to jump on anyone. And So I feel like that's where I got my idea. So I wanted to talk to these authors. And as I started talking to people, I'm just more and more just confirmed how much everyone just loves each other, willing to, even if we have the same genre, just to promote each other. I've just not had a bad experience yet. Just really great people. And I wish the rest of the world was lovely like this.
Yeah, it certainly would make for a better experience in life, wouldn't it? You know.
Absolutely.
So we already have a great question from the chat that I want to bring up while we're talking about this, and that is from Mr. JV Taylor, and he asks, being an indie is great for varying reasons, but what is one thing that you love about being an indie above all others? So what's your favorite thing about being indie?
Creative control.
Yeah, freedom.
Yeah, you said it. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Being my own boss in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can actually help or give an example of that too with my first release 5 years ago. After getting feedback from people, I was able to go back and retire that book and re-release it as a relaunch in a second edition. So that kind of flexibility really is uncomparable, I find.
I agree.
So that being said, we love our community. We love being a part of it. We love being indie. How do we stand out in a crowd? This is a crowded space. This is a space that is congested very easily. We all are accepting of the fact that, this is something that we have to deal with. So how do we stand out and not look like individuals in terms of, staying within the community and its guidelines?
Like a group of people is a good way to stand out. And I feel like anytime you're helping someone else, it's going to help get your name known. And that's not a reason to help. Because if you're out there like, oh, I'm going to help this because I'm going to get something out of it, you're going to be sad when the person you just spent 22 hours like helping them edit their book won't even like read yours. So just knowing that like sending out positive, good vibes, I think is a good way to. That's just my thought. I don't know.
I'm with you 100%, Marnie. Karma, what you put out, you're gonna get back. So if you go out and I think that like as an unspoken respect and rule, we all have this undying urge to one, share our stories, and two, help everybody do the same thing. It works that way. Like we put it out there just because we want to, and then the universe comes back and we celebrate in abundance. We get it back in abundance. So it's just a matter of putting in your time and having faith that it's going to come around one day. It always does.
Yeah, and a rising tide floats all boats, right? So the indie community has grown in leaps and bounds, and yeah, it means it's more crowded, but it also means there's more good, and people are more accepting of indie published books. So they're more willing to try them. Not just, people are not only buying from the big five anymore. So, I think the fact that we are continually sharing each other's books in our social community and things like that just helps the readership and helps the authorship in general.
We all share the same passion and we all share the same strengths in some ways, and others. I think when we start sharing parts of who we are and helping those that we can in the way that we know best how to, we give each other a little piece of ourselves, which makes everybody stronger. And when we're sharing that strength amongst us, we all gain. This is what it's supposed to be about. Everybody working together to make a tighter, stronger connection.
Well, I feel like anytime like you have an issue and you reach out to the community and they like help you, but you can also like learn so much more from it. There's so many times like when one time I wiped out my whole thing, I had to start all over, and someone gave me some advice, and it always feels like anytime there's a mistake, you can always build on it, and there's always someone willing to like give you that little seed to help you start again. I just feel like there's so much love out there. It's disgusting.
See, I told you she was my anchor. She led us right into the next question.
I didn't know the questions, I promise.
I know, but that's how much I know you. So when the group and publisher role ends, and we begin as individuals, what do we take away from? What do we gather a game plan based on what we've been throwing out into groups, or do we have something that we cherish and then we take it to the group and they confirm it and we move forward? How do you guys approach? Is the group dynamic for you more about getting the information that you need as opposed to, just being a part of a community? Where do you stand on that idea?
I found when receiving feedback in general with any sort of like community and colleagues and whatnot is I do have like my ideas in mind that I want to get, but I listen to their information and try to figure out what's a subjective opinion, or that's actually an oxymoron, but like a subjective statement and an objective one. So if it's trying to reach the goal of the book, then I know it's helpful, versus if it's their opinion, if they like something. But when I'm helping or talking to other people in groups, I like to offer my input too, and I'll help divide as best as I can for them, saying like, this is my personal opinion as someone who's reading this, but knowing what your goals are, this is what might help you.
I'm very big on I'll take your opinion, but I'm also kind of hard-headed. So I know me. So when I've had a couple people edit my books, and I've actually been so pissed at them by what they've suggested that like my first action is like to get really angry. Like, who are you? You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. This is my book. And then after I calm down, I read it. I'm like, okay, they were right. This is a good suggestion. But I will firmly hold on to anything I know in my heart is what it's supposed to be. Like, down with commas. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm honestly the same way. If I have a goal in mind, if I have a message I want to portray, and somebody they just don't get it. I maybe skipped over the humor and I put it in my head, but I didn't actually type it out, and they're like, it's not funny. And I'm like, how do you think this is not funny? This is gold. Like, this is just hilarious. And then you're right. You get so defensive, but I'm a firm believer in knowledge is power, and the more opinions that I get and the more diverse opinions that I get, I try to listen. And if I can't listen, then I record it, and then I'll listen to what they have to say back or reread comments. But I usually have to kind of step away and decompress it all and then go back and actually think it all in. But the more I get from people, the better it always turns out for me. So I've been lucky that way.
Yeah, my co-editor Mel Anastasia has a really good way of responding to all forms of critique. The good and the bad is that she files everything away as, that's interesting, right? And you can sort of set it aside that way, take out the emotion from it. It's like, that's interesting, and then wait a day, look at it objectively. It's like, does this person have a point? Did I not explain this properly? And yeah, usually, that's the case. It's like, so I've gotten to the point, I'm lucky because I run a magazine. I have professional editors doing my editing for me, which is wonderful. We pay them, and I've gotten really good at trusting my editors, and just, it's like, well, if she says that this isn't making sense, then it is not making sense, and that's what a good beta reader is for. That's what a good developmental editor and even a good copy editor is for.
I think I take time to digest everything that I'm told. It's really important that we get the information, but I too am extremely stubborn. And when I've written something that to me meant so much to me in that moment, especially if it's something in particular that I'm trying to portray, I usually stick to my guns. I usually have to take a couple of steps backwards and then really listen to not just what the words are, but maybe the interpretation of the words, because again, we can automatically hear it as a negative at first glance. And because it's ours, we are so invested in what we write that it takes me a long time to take a step back. I don't so much get angry as I get personally defensive. And so I kind of go back into myself, and I really need to learn that like I do it, and then I get really upset at myself for doing it. And then I think, no, I needed that time to actually sit there and realize what it is that I want to get out again. And sometimes I stick to my guns. It's like, no, this is the way it is, and that's the way it is. And I will stick to what I think. Other times I can look at it 2, 3, maybe a week later and say, it doesn't exactly have to be that way, but I can make it better. So you take little bits and pieces until you feel like you've not compromised what you were doing, but you've added benefit to what you were doing. And it's taken, I mean, and I'm very new. I mean, I think all of you have been doing this a lot longer than I have. I've only been at it published for a year. So my first year was complete learning curve. And I don't know how many times I sat there and said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore, because it's taking away from making it fun. Because you started doing this because it makes you feel good. You want to share what you want to do, and you really want to get it. I don't know about you, but every book that I write, there's a piece of me in it. Put it all out there for somebody else to look at, and then for it to be critiqued. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's not great. That not great takes such a hard, I take it very hard. I really do. So I have to take a step back and say, okay, what can I learn from it? But my heart's broken. It's broken. And it's going to take the take for me to come back together. And it's the community, and it's the people that you work with, and it's the groups that you talk to that sit there and say, one person's opinion does not mean you stop. You know, and you have to continue being who you are in your books. But adding to it, making a benefit, creating better, that's all good.
And you may come back to your book. I wrote my first book in 2015, and I've been kind of going strong. But I'm going back to my first book. I've grown as an author, but also the muses inside me kind of lied to me in book 1. They didn't tell me everything. They kind of left things out. They forgot to tell me some important things that I need to share. So I feel like that's a great thing about being indie. You can go back and be like, I'm sorry, my muses lied to me, a little bit of, nonsense going on, but I can update it and make it better and not feel like you've lost your reputation, because realistically, we're not selling billions and millions. We're selling thousands. So, I mean, if you have to update it, fix it, just keep making it better. And it's very hard to be an author. It's like the biggest ego stomp. Like, you'll be flying high and then somebody will shoot your balloon down, and you just have to hope your people around you will catch you. And many times I've been in a dark, dark place, and I've had Joe probably, good Lord, he's like, good God, what's this message about? So, I mean, it's good to have this great community that can help you, like, get through it, because it's a hard business.
It is.
Yeah.
And we all go through it, no matter what year you're in, no matter where you're at in your journey. I mean, and you continuously go through it, and you go through it different ways, right? I mean, Con, you could probably speak to this. You've published a few books, and you've been in the business for a bit. You do go through it in a different. It's almost like the 10 stages of grieving, right? You have different stages that you go through as you deal with this.
Yeah, it is. Or it's you go through like this dark place, or this fire that you go through, and then it just feels like it's all around you, and there's no way getting out of it. And even like, I've found times where I've had really supportive people, but it's just ultimately sometimes it comes down to you doing it and working through the problem in the story, or whatever it may be related to the book, and you just have to like lift yourself up and get through it, because a lot of it's just your own psyche psyching you out essentially. And yeah, so you have to power through it and reminding yourself. And yeah, you have to just kind of take a step back and really take a breather, and I think that can help you get through a lot of those problems.
To speak a little bit about what, Marnie, you were talking about your muses on not wanting to share your first book. My first book to second book. My first book, I literally sat down, hibernated, wrote it for like 2 weekends, and then I passed it on to my publishing team. I'm like, here, go, bye. And then my second book came out, and I started writing it, and every day I was bringing in somebody, whether it was a coworker at my day job, whether it was my mom, whether it was my roommate, whether it was whoever would listen to me. I'm like, read this, I want your opinion. And through that kind of transition and that growth between book 1 and book 2, I started to remind myself, and I've started to learn through even reading my reviews afterwards from book 1 to 2, the more negative or the more emotion that you're drawing from people that you reach out to, whether they're your readers, whether they're your editors, whether they're your family, your friends, the more emotion that you draw from them, the better we are at our jobs. Like, isn't that what we do? Isn't that what we do? We tell stories to draw emotion, and we pour ourselves into these books. And whatever we get back, whether it's good, bad, ugly, that we did our jobs, because we're not going to please everybody. That's not what we're doing. We're here to draw emotion. And that's anytime I get anything negative, I try to remind myself that even though it's negative, we're doing something right.
Yeah.
Well said.
And you want negative reviews too. You want a few negative reviews.
Yeah, they build character.
Well, no, because if everything is all positive, then people believe that it's just your friends and family writing reviews, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you need somebody to kick you in the butt and tell you, you need to fix this. Yeah, I'm lucky. I was very lucky to have my wife, because my wife took the third act of my book and said, this sucks. And from that, I was able to draw out what she was talking about. There's a point in this story where it just dies and ends up being nothing. So, and then I said, interesting. I've had publishers look at it. I've had agents look at it. I had an agent. So, somebody didn't catch that, and my wife did, and she changed the whole thing, and it put a spark in you. But you need that. You need that little kick in the butt. But you also need the encouragement too. I think that's what's cool about our community, right? Is that it's a give and take. You get the good constructive feedback, but you also get the nice, messages and the great encouragement, and you feel like you're on track, and that usually keeps you from curling in a ball and, serenity now, just getting back into your own personal space and feeling like you're a person again, right?
Oh yeah.
It's hard though, because one negative takes about 15 positive to get you back to square one.
It does. It does. It's true.
We're so sensitive and emotional. It's just like, good Lord.
Yeah. I used to teach childbirth classes, and at the end of every series, you hand out reviews, and they'd be all, they rate it like 1 to 4, whatever, and it'd be all fours, and then one person didn't like one thing. I'd be down about that for the whole rest of the next day.
Yeah.
I'd got the same thing when I used to teach at a college, and at the end of the class, I would have them review the lesson, especially if we were doing a trial on a new lesson, and then I'd get, just because they're always anonymous comments too, and I'd just fixate on them, which wasn't healthy. And over time, I learned to just kind of deal with it and brush it off and just take it for face value, because sometimes you can just really go down a wormhole when you analyze the responses.
Yeah
We have a great question in the chat again. It's Mr. Taylor asking another question. He said, I'm going to tailor his question. His name's JB Taylor. I'm going to tailor his question because he asked, do you find that fellow indie authors, editors, promoters are better with feedback than friends and family, at least more honest? And if I'm going to take away the editor and promoter part, because the promoter part's job is to boost your ego, and the editor's part is to tear you down. So they have an agenda right off the bat. I mean, some editors are better at, mixing the positive and negative together. But how about authors? Have you found that that's the best audience for what you present, or is your friends and family a better, more honest audience?
Friends and family, I don't trust. I just don't. I mean, I use my significant other as a proofreader sometimes, and I trust his instincts, because if he doesn't like a sentence, he'll just write "ick" beside it or something like that, and I trust that. But anybody else, friends and family, I don't trust them enough to be honest. So I prefer editors and other authors, quite frankly.
Well, it's hard for family. My sister always says to me, she's like, "You're just going to get mad if I tell you." But I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm going to get mad. You're right. But could you just tell me anyway? Like, I need that. So family's hard.
Yeah.
But I think also sometimes authors, if they're really close friends, they're also kind of too close sometimes to tell you like the cruel things you need to hear.
Do you think that,
for me,
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I think for me, it was like I wrote fiction, but it was based on certain things that people in my life had been through. So myself, my family, some of my friends, and when I gave them and I get them to proofread, somebody may not understand with not having the background. So I found it easier. I have a mix. Like it's literally a 50-50 mix, because and I have certain family and certain friends that I'm like, you're just gonna get an actual copy of the book when it's ready. So I've tailored it, but it's definitely been a learning process on who I go to for advice now.
Same. Yeah, it's very selective on the beta readers, and I'll actually bring in certain people at certain stages. So like general story, when I haven't even gone through many revisions to clean up like paragraph structures and any of that, just to know if the story is even engaging, and they'll give me feedback. Then I'll bring in a second wave of people, and they're always small groups that I trust that are going to have very varying opinions, and some are like very conservative, others are really liberal. So it really plays a role in their opinions too, which is helpful.
I kind of did something a little different, because when I was doing my first book, nobody knew I was writing it. I mean, nobody knew. My own husband didn't know. It just kind of evolved. And then one day I said, well, that what I did was I took pieces of the book, like a chapter, 2 chapters, and I sent them to different people that I knew, that I trusted. And I didn't tell them where it came from. I basically said, hey, I found this. What do you think of it? And they had no clue I even wrote. And I'm talking about people that I've known for years and years. And I would get their feedback based on the fact that they didn't even know where it came from.
Right.
Now that would work for the first one. It's not going to work for the second one, because now they know I write. So I'm thinking, well, I don't know what I'm going to do with the next one. But for the first one, I did it because it was my first kind of, well, what do I do with this? And is it actually even good enough to do anything with? When I started getting the feedback and it was positive, I thought, you know what, I can do something with this. And that's when I decided to take it a step further.
We've examined our dark spaces and everything like that. I want to know, has there been a time when you approached the group with an idea and it worked out, that you just worked out, and you go, yes, I came up with the best idea and it worked? If you want, go ahead, say certain examples, or just tell me yes or no.
Well, I think I did with Indie Insight, with my blog. I think that was my crowning moment of, I have this idea and I'm going to go with it. And I did get a lot of great support. So yes, I do have that experience. Thank you.
Yeah, to speak to that, I can tell you that this was the thickness of book 1, and that's the thickness of book 2. So that was a huge moment in my author career that I was like, all right, I could write 100 and something page book. But guess what? I could do that times 3, and it's even better. So have fun. So yeah, it's a great moment.
I had one recently with the new book I'm working on, because normally with my writing the ending has always been unclear, and the characters are kind of put in a setting, and then the story just starts to come out from there. Where this new one that I'm working on is the first time I came up with the ending first, but I figured I was gonna get rid of it. But now that it's actually gone through some revisions and going through the editing process right away here, it actually worked out. Yeah, I was surprised that it's the first time I've been able to keep an end concept from start of writing to the end of it, and yeah, that was pretty rewarding on its own.
Well, that's dangerously like plotting.
Yeah, eh?
I take it you're usually a pantser.
Kind of a mix. Like normally I'll like start the first draft with it's very improv, but then I go back and then I'll write chapter outlines from that, and that's when I really start to delete and add and mutate things quite a bit. So it's kind of a mixed mash. But yeah, this one was very, very structured.
Cool.
Nice. So what is it that what's one part of your promotion game that you feel needs some work, and how have you gone into correcting that?
Promoting myself needs some work. I am really good at promoting the magazine. I do that all the time. I'm always selling a magazine, and I always just kind of forget about my novel. Like, so it's hard. I mean, and you guys are all indie authors, so you know how hard it is to promote yourself. It's way easier to have somebody else say something, and say something cool about you, and it's way easier to say something cool about other people. And that was actually, again, one of the reasons we founded Pulp Literature, is because we all admired each other's writing so much. And it's like, I said to Sue and Mel, I want to publish your writing, and they said, well, I want to publish your writing. And so that's kind of how that started. And it is way easier to promote somebody else. So that is one thing I have to learn, is how to promote myself.
I'm very lucky. I have a group of women that I've decided to go out on my own. I'm with a current publisher, and I'm now going out on my own again. And Julie Northup is like the biggest cheerleader I could ever possibly have. She has more confidence in me than I could even have it all. I'm the worst at marketing my own. And yes, here, Joe. Joe, I every video I talk about Joe. It's gonna get weird. People are gonna think I got a super crush on him or something. No. So I'm not very good at it. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I wrote a book, cool. But I'm very happy to publish, like, talk about everyone else's. So it's very hard. I don't know. Some people are just good about talking about their own stuff. I've not met too many people that are really good at it, but James Patterson.
I'm definitely not good at it. I'm so not good at it. I'm with you. It is the hardest thing to do, is to pat your own back and talk about your book. I love doing the podcast, because I think this is, to me, much more relaxing than being in a bookstore. That is not good. It is not good at all for me. But the thing is, I learned over the course of this year that I shouldn't be doing them. I just shouldn't be doing them. If I'm not good at it, and the fact that my genre is the smallest section in the bookstore, because most women don't want to walk out with a romance novel. That's why Kindle exists. They don't want to go to pick up this book and walk out with some guy on the cover thinking, oh my God, what does she pick up? So I was talking to a bunch of different people in chapters, like managers, and they say, yeah, romance is better online. You're not going to get the flow that you need. So I learned that didn't work. I learned that this works a lot better for me because I'm still getting my name out there, meeting great new people, and they can share the book that you write as well. I learned that my social media skills are horrible. Like, they're just horrible. I don't enjoy it. I don't do it well. So you have to kind of look outside the box and say, if I don't do it well, then I need to find somebody who can do it, or someone who has the patience to teach me how. But you know what your strengths are. So I play on the strengths. I'm great one-on-one. I'm great in small groups. I'm great in a social setting. Bookstores, not so much. So why am I catering to something that I know isn't going to work for me when I have other strengths in other areas? You know, I'm always a prime believer in saying, if you know an expert in their field, let them do their job. I write. That's what I do. I know that social media is not my thing, so I have to find someone who's going to be able to connect those dots for me and make it easy for me.
So let me wax poetic here for a second then, because we see a bunch of people who are very good at promoting themselves, and oftentimes they're very good at blanketing our Facebook pages and our Twitter accounts with what we call spam or clickbait or things of that nature. Is that Freudian for us being jealous that they can do that without a conscious and we can't? Or is that more they're still doing it the wrong way, and there's a better way to approach that?
Well, I often ignore those types of tweets. So like, it's not working on me, right? Like, when I just see from one particular, I'll see just nothing but promotional tweets, I just ignore that or unfollow. So yeah.
Yeah, I've always wondered if those work, and what the actual results are in terms of sales. And often for that type of level of spam, especially on Twitter, they start to pay for software or pay for people to tweet about their book or something on their own Twitter accounts. So yeah, I'd be curious what the return of that is, and maybe that helps with some of their conscious state of doing that type of spam, is seeing some revenue. But yeah, it's hard to say.
I think something like Twitter is because people don't know what to do with it at all.
True.
Like I am the worst at Twitter. I will only post promotional stuff, and it's very infrequent because A, I don't look at it, and B, I don't understand it, to be honest. I'm like, it doesn't engage me. I don't get a response. I don't get my ego stroked with a comment or a like or a, hey, I saw it. It's just once in a while a retweet, and then you're like, oh, okay, cool. But yeah, so I think that's part of it, figuring out which social media also like speaks to you. Like Instagram, you can put little comments and people like that. So you have to find the one that you like.
And there's also a science to it, right? All of social media platforms have algorithms on who you're targeting as your audience, and they have lists. Facebook has lists, so you can create lists so certain posts only get to see certain people. Like, there's just such a science behind it, and it's really like, on top of writing your books, you have to now go and search out how to be a social media business, right? Like there's like, I will spend too much time on YouTube and talking to people, just trying to learn tips on how to build a successful business by posting without that spam, because I'm manually doing everything right now. And I can tell you that on my lunch breaks, on my rides home from work, in between my sets at the gym, like I'm doing something on social media, trying to just get my name out and trying to get my book out and hashtag chin up tits out as much as I can, just so in case the right person or that next person sees it.
And how much of that is you doing your book, though, or is it more of you being social? I mean, is the concept of social media being social more helpful than actually publicizing your book?
See, and I go, my book to me is a message, right? It's a lifestyle, it's a movement that we have to, as humans, I think, is we always should go through life with a chin up, tits out attitude, right? That's my series. That's what I got. And me being social and constantly being in the forefront of the minds of the people that I'm targeting in my book, whether I'm at the gym, whether I'm drinking a bottle of really nice wine, whether I go out with my family or I'm going for a walk with my dog, I might connect with one person out there that I wouldn't have connected before. And if I hashtag my title and they see it, they might click on it and go, hey, this chick has a cute dog. That's cool. I got the same dog. And then scrolls down and sees chin up, tits out. I'm going to click on it and then see a bunch of my posts, my book, other people's posts with my book, so it's social, but it's the whole thing, right? I want to be social and I want to be out there, but I'm being social with a purpose. I'm posting with a purpose. It's not all book, come see me at a signing. This is me as a person. I'm just like you and you and you and you. And hey, if you like my posts, maybe you might like my story. I don't know. It works some days. It doesn't work some days. And when it doesn't,
I agree with that.
Yeah, you can't do social media without the social part. Like if you're just out there to promote yourself, that you won't get the engagement, right? So it has to be a mix.
It comes across as not genuine.
Yeah,
you want to be genuine.
It's extremely difficult, especially like if you have another job. If you have a 9 to 5, and then when your other 9 to 5 happens to be this very lucrative, keeping you in the money job, but it's your passion. So, I mean, how do you define that? Like, I have 2 Facebook accounts. Which one's priority? My page obviously gets neglected because my personal is it's easier to work with than the author page. So it's hard to really balance. I've not figured it out, and I've been doing this for 4 years. So it's a learning path. I mean, I know Joe seems to have mastered it a little bit.
Is it because we depend on our groups? Our groups help us with that, I think, in some respects, guys?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've learned a little bit even from you, Joe, with video, because you hear that popping up a lot more for for social media, and it's become more of a accessible option on your apps, like with Instagram, Snapchat, all of those different ones. So yeah, video is kind of the next phase of getting comfortable with social media, and just you have to find your own kind of workings with it.
Well, it's ridiculously addicting too.
Yes.
Today I did a takeover, and instead of typing, I had to talk the whole time. I'm like, who are you? Where is this coming from? But I think people are engaged when they can see the person, not try to interpret your words. They can actually see what you mean. They don't have to be like, oh, did she mean that rudely? Or was she being sarcastic? Or probably I was being sarcastic. They're trying to, I think it's a good way to really meet you.
It is. Yeah, because you lose, like, even though we are writers, but you do lose, I guess, some text. Like, you lose 70% of a person's personality through text. Then when you actually get to talk and see them in person, and video at least get to a lot more of the senses. You're still missing out on some of them, but yeah, it's the closest you can get to being right next to them.
Well, and we were just talking about how we don't trust social media sometimes, our posts, and the way that, they're portrayed. How genuine do you think they are if you can't see their face when they're telling you this, So there's something to that respect as well. And also, I don't know how many of this panel have gone out and actually sold their books at a book festival or a fair. I would assume most of us or all of us have done that. But how much, when you were engaging your customer, did you find that was such a better way to sell?
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So if I can see you and you're talking to me, you're selling to me. So, right. So that's the whole idea of video. I mean, I don't have to convince anybody here. Everybody's here talking right now in front of me, but Yeah. So, I mean, what are some of the things that we've learned from our colleagues that maybe we haven't told them that we stole from them or taken from them, or something that we really think, has been very effective for us?
Well, I could speak to a gentleman, Mickey Mickelson, who we're all kind of connected to through Creative Edge. He and I connected with my first book with his company, and the one thing that I've learned from him that I have not told him about yet is his constant perseverance. You guys have all worked with him, so you know that no matter if you have a goal and you tell him what you want, he'll just do it, and he'll always find a way. And at the end of the day, we always go through these emotional roller coasters when we write, and I always have his words in his head to just keep doing it. Like, we're here for a reason, so keep doing it. Like, don't give up. And I think perseverance and that constant encouragement from people like him and people like our panel and our community is what keeps us going and what separates us from everybody else out there. Why we're so unique.
See, Mickey, I told you they would start talking about you.
It's hard to just say one person because I feel like there's so many people I could start listing. Ellie Fitzpatrick taught me, like, just because you think something's fun and fluffy doesn't mean it needs to be in your book. Is it moving your story forward? If not, she's going to cut 300,000 words out of your book and get it down to 200,000 just because you need to talk less. And J.M. Northup told me commas are important, which I still disagree with a little bit. I mean, everybody teaches you something, and you can take it and put it in your pocket, or it'll slowly absorb in, and you'll acknowledge commas need to be used sometimes. But, you got to pick and choose, and it's hard. And everybody has an opinion. And this is what I've learned about the author world. As much as everyone's helpful and loving, everyone has an opinion. And you have to just be like, thank you, that's a great opinion, and I know that's your opinion. And then remember you. Remember what you believe and what your truth is. So that's just my opinion, like everyone's. And Joe, you taught me something. Sorry.
Yeah, same thing too. It's hard to pick one person to even to narrow down, because you learn something from everyone, and that's why it's great to network with other authors, and that's where the groups start to come in, and they build communities of learning from everyone.
Yeah, it is really hard to pick one person, because I feel like every time I go to a conference or something, I'm learning all the time. Since I started the magazine, it's been a huge learning curve. But I think the people I've learned the most from are sort of the smaller authors who are not indie but have been published through small press. So not the mid-list authors or the ones who've made it really, but the ones who've just been publishing short fiction, maybe for decades even, and they just keep going because that's what they do. They're writers, and they change publishers, and and it's like they go with the flow, and that's been really helpful. It's just observing that it doesn't have to be all one model. It doesn't have to be all one way. You can adapt and change and change with the times.
I think that I've learned from absolutely everybody. Anybody who's ever, who I've met, any new authors, any authors that have been around forever, editors, even Mickey. You learn things about how to talk, what not to say. How to build your own confidence, a lot of self-talk that you have to do to yourself just to get yourself geared up to go do these things. There's so much that we get from everybody that I couldn't possibly say thank you enough to anybody who's ever been around. But I try. The one thing that I think I'm really good at is showing appreciation to anyone who spent the time, they try to teach me or spend the time with me, or just have a conversation with me about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and little tricks of the trade that I never would have known about. Like I said, this year has been nothing but learning. And I'm big on writing everything down. So I think I've got like an entire journal of stuff that I have to look at and say, okay, well, what works and what doesn't, and our input.
And what works today may not work tomorrow. That's the great thing about keeping track of it, because as you're always changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a question from the audience. We have quite a few actually, but I'll hit you with this one from Rebecca Jonesy. She asks, what kind of groups do you guys gravitate towards? When you look at joining a group, what are you looking for?
I'm the worst at this. I will join groups and leave if there's too much talking, which doesn't make much sense, does it?
I do the same. Yeah.
I'm just like, oh God, they're talking way too much. I can't do this. No, thank you. I'd look for a group that has a little bit of chatter and a lot of information in little sound bites that are good, and also not too many people that are very opinionated, because I'm very like easily to like cat up and like go hide under my bed if I feel like too much stimulus. Like, so I like it when it's just small, intimate. I don't know. That's me.
I'm 100% with you. If there's too many people, it's emotion overload, and I just need to take that in small chunks and process it and then continue on.
I'm the same.
Yeah, I've been a bit of a floater, especially online, where I kind of go from one group for a little bit, and then the too much topics start to happen, and then I get really quiet, and then I find another group that starts small, and then I tend to float around a lot, but the topics tend to focus in around technicalities and marketing techniques more than the actual writing process itself, just for my own needs and where I want to leverage certain people's expertise, and found those are effective.
Nice. So Christy Stratos asked the panel, do you find any kind of events that aren't necessarily aimed for authors that are a good way to meet other writers? I mean, she says has heard flea markets and things like that can be a good niche market of sorts. Is there anybody who's had the experience with that?
At the Renaissance Fair, I found out everybody wrote a book. Like everyone at the Renaissance Fair had wrote a book that day. You know, all 50,000 people there, they'd all written a book. So, but I don't, usually people in the grocery store don't walk up, and you don't get that kind of connection.
Fan conventions are good, like, you know, science fiction conventions. We usually do a table at VCon, and that's usually, we didn't do one this year, but that's a great place to meet people. There are a lot of other authors, but there's a lot of just plain people who love to read science fiction. So, you know, or fantasy. So if that's your genre, those places are good places to get tables.
Has anybody here done a writer's conference?
Yep.
How did you find that experience?
Well, I've spoken at several. We've done one, When Words Collide, and we've done, which is Readers and Writers, and Creative Inc. Surrey Writers Conference. Word Vancouver. They're all very different. But I do find that what we found at When Words Collide is that we were new there. We were new to Calgary. We have a big following in Vancouver, but we were completely new kids in Calgary. So our sales were nothing was happening all weekend until the last day when we had our readings, and it helped that we had C.C. Humphreys there because he was one of our authors this year. So a lot of people came to the reading. As soon as they'd been to the reading, everybody was at our table buying books afterwards. So that, that made a huge difference, and people, connecting with people and collecting cards and things like that.
So how about, does anybody have a large audience? Okay, I'm going to preface this because 4/5 of this panel is Canadian, so you cannot say America to this question. But does anybody have large audiences in any other country? And this is a question from JD Estrada, by the way. Does anybody have large audiences in any other country, and any insights on how to manage that?
I can truly.
America doesn't count.
I don't honestly know where my audience is, to be honest. I know.
I have an audience. You can track them on Amazon. There's this science, or like there's reports on Amazon where you can track it. On Instagram, I track where my posts, what countries I am followed in, which is something that I've recently learned. So that I'm kind of working with that. But yeah, it's been interesting. Like you can track, like there's reports on everything. So wherever your distributor, or wherever you're signed up with the distributor, you can find out where your books are being sold and what types of books are being sold. I've hit all continents, through Europe, through Asia, through Africa, down in South America with my first and second book. My first book was within a couple of weeks. My second book was within hours. I sold more books down through a couple countries in Africa than I did in Canada online my first 24 hours on Amazon. I don't know how it happened, but I looked at the reports. I'm like, sweet.
That's a downfall of having a publisher. You don't have access to your reports. You lose that. That's another reason why I'm going on my own, to be able to have that control again.
Theoretically, you can request them, but it depends on your publisher and whether they release them and when they get around to. Yeah.
Anybody else want to add to this?
Yeah, we have audience all around the world, but our largest is Canada and US and UK, but we have readers in India and New Zealand and Germany, all sorts of weird little pockets. I don't know how they find out about it, but they do.
All right. So since we've all become great friends here tonight, I'm hoping that some of you answer this question. If I hear crickets, then I'll know. But is there a super secret group that you all are into that you would invite us and and the audience listening and chatting right now into, that maybe we don't know about? Anybody care to share? You keep it all to yourselves, huh?
Well, no, we do have a secret group, but it is for our patrons. So anybody who supports us on Patreon joins that secret group, and it is a secret Facebook group, which includes all our patrons plus all the authors who've ever been published in pulp literature over the last 4 years. So there's about 70 authors in there. So that's highly secret and private, but you can support us on Patreon for $1 a month and get in there. That's our only secret one.
Here, and I'm thinking, I was like, well, I have a group of 11 random women that I've just hoarded throughout my life. I've known some of them for 20 plus years. I've known some of them for a year or so, and I put them all together in a WhatsApp chat, and I said, go. And I am never shy on book material, on ideas, the stuff that crazy, lovely, independent, unique women is just, it's wonderful. So that's my secret group, and anybody is welcome to listen in. It's interesting, but it definitely is a little secret for me.
So cool.
Anybody else? No? We probably all have crossed paths at one point or another in other groups, and we may not even have known it, because some of these groups have 8,000 members and 2,000 members, and there's not many. Once there's a really good group out there, it doesn't keep secret for very long, right? I mean, that's the way that works.
Yeah, very true.
All right, so we've had a great discussion here tonight. And I really appreciate everybody taking the time to do this with me, and it's been lovely. I'm going to ask the panel once more to tell everybody where they can find you and make sure that they know who you are. So I'm going to go right to left this time. So that means, Marnie, you're going to start.
Oh, okay. I'm Marnie Kate, and I can be found at marniekate.com. And I look forward to each of you signing up to be a guest on my show. Even you in the audience, everyone. Send me a message. I'm going to get you scheduled. Thank you.
Con Lavery. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and my website. I'm most active on those. It's Con, Konn, Lavery, LAVERY.com. And yeah, follow me there. Subscribe to the newsletter and add me on Instagram. That's where I post the most.
Jen?
I am known as a writer as J.M. Landels, down there at the bottom. You can find me on Twitter at J.M. Landels or Facebook. And you can also find me on, oh, there it is, pulpliterature.com. Yeah, come and join us. Come over to the Pulp Literature site. We have a public site too, where there are great discussions. So come and join us there.
Awesome. Miranda?
You can find me, Miranda O, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or if you hashtag chin up tits out, for sure you'll find me as well.
I have a feeling that's going to trend tonight. Anna?
Fingers crossed.
You can find me at Romance by A.G. Kirkham. I do go by A.G. Kirkham in the author area. You can get my book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, chapters. It's throughout. There's a link to, when you go to my website, to all of those places that you can get it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, panel, for being here. I really appreciate it. You guys were awesome. It was really a lot of fun to talk to you all. For those of you who don't know, I'm Joe Compton. This has been GoIndieNow. And I just want to say that while we're all individuals doing our own thing and trying to make it in this crazy world that we call publishing and being authors, the old adage that there's strength in numbers always comes true in this instance. And that's one of the great things about our community. Our indie community is very, very fostering and very, very open, and we can have debates and discussions, and we can have love fests and hug time and all the things that make us human beings. And I think that's what's great about our community. And a great example of it here tonight, I literally only knew 2 people on this panel, and I feel like now I know 5. So I'm very grateful to all of you for joining us. Thank you to the great live chat. It was awesome. You guys had some great questions. You guys were lively as always, and we really appreciate that. And remember, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you next time. All right, everybody.